Blackstone has been destroying American dreams one house at a time. They've bought up entire neighborhoods, jacked up rents 38%, and turned generations of families into permanent renters. $1 trillion in assets. They control nearly 30% of the Vegas Strip real estate. They thought they were untouchable. Then on July 29th, their CEO, Wesley LePatner, he was gunned down in broad daylight inside their Manhattan headquarters. The shooter, a former casino worker. And here's the kicker. Vegas gaming revenues crashed 40% in just 12 months. The city is bleeding out while Blackstone bleeds, literally. The media barely whispered about this assassination. Why? Because when you connect the dots between housing theft, Vegas collapse, and executive murder, the picture gets very, very dark. And while Blackstone squeezes families out of homes, causing real pain across America, there's one thing that actually works for pain relief. You're getting older. I'm getting older. Joint pain is inevitable, but standard turmeric barely absorbs in your body. Dr. Josh Levitt developed Golden Revive Plus with BCM 95 curcumin that absorbs 200 times better, plus boswellia for inflammation, magnesium for tight muscles, and bromelain for stiff joints. Now, I take it daily. No more morning stiffness, no hesitation on stairs, and while Blackstone destroys lives, you can rebuild yours. Visit goldenrevive.com/NNN for your discount. That's goldenrevive.com/NNN. So the question is being asked, is Las Vegas dead? Gaming and entertainment down 40% over the last 12 months. Blackstone owns 30% of the real estate on the Strip. And guess who worked for a casino and murdered a Blackstone executive? Listen to this.
We are in Vegas, and we're trying to see, is Las Vegas dead? So what's happening right now, you guys, in Las Vegas, 40%, they are down 40% in tourism, gambling, entertainment, you name it. Also, even Caesars Entertainment right now, they are paying $6.5 million a day in interest. But here's what's really happening. In Las Vegas right now, VC and Blackstone own a majority of the real estate on the Las Vegas Strip. Let's not forget what just happened in Manhattan. We had that NYC shooter, and where did he go? To the headquarters of Blackstone. Now, who did he work for? None other than Caesars Entertainment. So you have a shooter coming from Las Vegas, going all the way to NYC to shoot up the headquarters of Blackstone. Interesting. Now, could it be that VC and Blackstone are rising the prices of hospitality when it comes to pizza slices being $13, a bottle of water being $26, just to crash the market to take it pennies on the dollar later? Blackstone owns almost 30% of the Las Vegas Strip when it comes to real estate. So could it be the Las Vegas shooter knew what was going on behind closed doors and took matters into his own hands going to New York? And mind you guys, this is a Friday night on a summer night, and this is how it looks. So what do you guys think? Is Las Vegas dead? Let me know below. We are in Vegas.
Is Las Vegas dead? Well, somebody is dead. Another CEO. The CEO of BREIT, a subsidiary of Blackstone, shot and killed, and the media barely whispers. It's not just what happened, it's who it happened to. Wesley LePatner, CEO of BREIT, a subsidiary of Blackstone, the $1 trillion asset manager, was shot and killed, and the headlines won't even call her a CEO. Why? Because that word would catch your attention, and once you look, you will learn. Her company bought over $105 billion in homes, mostly in the Sun Belt. They outbid families with cash offers and rent the homes back to you. In many areas, they're the only landlords, setting the rent however they want. They help create the nightmare we call the housing market. If you've ever wondered why rent is unbearable or why you can't buy a home no matter how hard you work, that's part of it. And this is why the story is being buried, because once people connect the dots between Wall Street landlords, housing misery, and political silence, the whole game falls apart. It's not about a CEO. It's about how deeply broken the system is. Late-stage capitalism isn't coming. It's here, and it's collecting rent. Listen to this.
Blackstone's real estate. Are you wondering why the news won't tell you that another CEO was shot and killed? It's probably because of how the world reacted to Luigi and Brian Thompson, cheering on the fact that the man who played a role in denying millions of Americans health care was shot dead outside a lobby in New York City. Well, on Monday, Wesley LePatner, the CEO of a subsidiary of Blackstone, an asset manager who manages about $1 trillion in assets, was shot dead. LePatner was CEO of BREIT, Blackstone's real estate income trust. But all the news publications about this stay away from the word CEO. They minimize her role. And it's because they know the word CEO will catch your attention. BREIT is directly responsible for drastically increasing home prices in this country, making it near impossible for anyone to afford a new home, let alone young Americans to dream about owning one in their future. They were founded in 2017 and poured tens of billions of dollars into buying up homes in bulk, especially in the Sunbelt region. So far, they've taken over $105 billion worth of homes off the market. What they do is buy homes in bulk for cash. They outbid anyone else, and then they put them up for permanent rent. Take them off the market. You can't buy them. In some areas, BREIT has been able to acquire monopoly power for themselves, allowing them to drive up the rent prices in entire areas, because the only people they're competing against are themselves. If you live in the Sun Belt and have experienced high rent or impossible home prices, chances are BREIT has played a role in that. So it makes sense that the institutions and ruling class don't want to name this connection to this killing, because then people will start educating and talking about it. We live in a late stage capitalism that has created these mega corporations wielding trillions of dollars in wealth that they use to maximize the wealth they extract out of you. That's why they're buying up all the homes. They want to make sure you're paying the most possible to them or paying rent to them forever. This should be illegal. If you learned something, follow me for more. Thank you. Are you wondering why the news won't tell you?
Interesting insight. Very interesting indeed. Here's some more. Apparently, Blackstone's real estate CEO was killed. This is what Cal's writing. If you had to see any news, say it directly. That isn't social media calling a CEO of Blackstone a superstar with children who loved her, ahead of one, if not the most evil corporations on the face of the earth.
Family homes. Breaking news, we have a major update about the shooting in Manhattan yesterday. It has now been confirmed that the CEO of Blackstone Real Estate Income Trust, Wesley LePatner, was killed in the shooting. Blackstone Real Estate Income Trust is a subsidiary of the larger Blackstone Financial Manager, which you might have heard of because they have been buying up single-family homes across America and artificially increasing housing prices for the entire country. If you haven't already, go watch my previous video because we theorized that an executive was killed based on how the media was already portraying the narrative of what unfolded yesterday. And now, despite the fact that we know that a CEO was killed, the mainstream media, most of the articles are telling you that he was targeting the NFL, despite the fact that the NFL isn't housed on the 33rd floor where he went to go shoot someone. And right now they're burying headlines about the CEO being among those killed, and they're downplaying her position in the company. I will be meticulously following this story and calling out the mainstream media for trying to paint a different narrative.
Isn't that interesting? That's what the narrative was. He was targeting the NFL, completely ignoring what we're now learning. Unbelievable malfeasance from the mainstream media as well. Blackstone CEO targeted shooting cover-up. This lady used to make $9,000 a minute.
Hey, what's going on, Natasha? We're here along 54th and Park Avenue. The building in the middle of the scene is right there near 943 Park Avenue, not too far away from us.
On July 28th, a lone gunman stormed 345 Park Avenue, killing 4 people before taking his own life. Among the victims was Wesley LePatner, a top executive at Blackstone, one of the world's largest investment firms, and not just any executive, the CEO. Yet the mainstream media has fixated on the NFL, which shares the same building, burying LePatner's death and Blackstone's predatory history. Adding insult to injury, when they do mention her, they downplay her significance by labeling her merely as a top executive or employee, conveniently omitting her full titles as global head of Core Plus Real Estate and CEO of Blackstone Real Estate Income Trust, or otherwise known as BREIT. Why the deliberate minimization? Today, we expose the truth about the assassination, Blackstone's exploitative practices, and its split from BlackRock, and how the media is steering the narrative away from the corporate giant's dark legacy.
And we talked to a bunch of witnesses who told us they heard some of those shots ring out, and they also heard warnings coming from other citizens that there was a shooter inside that building. And I have some of those witnesses right here. I'm going to be joined by one of the individuals who was inside pretty close by. Talk to me about what you saw, what you heard. Just tell me about it.
Now think about this for a second. Narrative control. Every single media outlet was saying NFL, NFL, NFL. That was the main and official story that was being parroted. An organization like BlackRock, with the money they have, could very easily shift the narrative. Just like Johnson & Johnson and the Tylenol murders. That's exactly what they did. If you take a look back, remember in the Chicago area, they said that a lone lunatic was going store to store and was placing poison in Tylenol bottles. Now, years ago, I actually interviewed somebody who investigated that story and I interviewed one of the daughters of a survivor of that moment. And this is what blew the entire cover for that story, is because that daughter, whose mother died, did not receive her Tylenol from a store. She received it from a closed pharmacy inside a hospital. So some lone lunatic couldn't just walk into a closed hospital pharmacy. And that broke the entire narrative that Johnson & Johnson was trying to present. Because if they could simply just point to a lone lunatic, then it's very easy to close the case. But if it was actually placed inside the bottles somewhere else, that makes it even more dangerous. And what was eventually uncovered, and what is believed to be the true story now, according to the investigator, is that it was a disgruntled employee who was doing it in the manufacturing process before the bottles ever hit the shelves. So when those bottles went out and they were distributed, that's how the bottle got in to the pharmacy. So for damage control purposes, Johnson & Johnson stepped in to control the narrative. They pushed the narrative. They said lone lunatic, store to store, because they needed to protect their interests. It was so much easier for them to point the finger at a lone lunatic than to say that their entire distribution model was completely flawed. It made it even more dangerous for them. And now if you look at any bottle that you receive at the store today, they now have safety seals and tin foil and all kinds of things, making it like that was how they would solve this problem, to prevent anybody from doing it store to store. It was all about a corporation protecting the narrative to protect themselves. And they put the marching orders out to the media to control that narrative. They were all working hand in hand. So in this case, you have a very similar situation. You have a very powerful corporation saying, we don't want to have any light shown upon the victim here, because if that light is shown, it's going to reveal perhaps a motive of somebody who was affected by BlackRock's actions. Same story, different time, corporation manipulating the narrative using the media. I mean, we see it time and time again. And this is shocking, but it actually doesn't shock me that we're finding this out now. Here's James Fishback talking about Blackstone.
Generation of companies like Blackstone that are coming into communities, buying up homes, not to sell them to the next bidder or the next family, but to literally take them off the market for a generation and make us a generation of renters, make us a generation of slaves. Because you can never truly embrace the American dream if you don't have the ownership in your own home. That is the number one asset. That's how we grow our wealth over time, is the promise of home ownership. And so when Blackstone enabled by Chinese hedge funds, Chinese institutional investors. That's among who Blackstone counts as their investors, coming into our communities, buying our homes, literally taking them off the market for as far as the eye can see, and not letting you or I buy them. If you go to Blackstone and say, hey, I want to buy that home that you just got, I'll give you 20% more than what you just paid for it, they will tell you no. What they will tell you is you can rent it. You can become our slave. And you know what? We got rid of slavery a long time ago in this country. Slavery is unacceptable. It is an absolute sin. It is not fair to force American families out of the promise of home ownership when they've saved up for it to become slaves to Blackstone, which is enabled by Chinese investment proceeds.
And this is exactly what BlackRock doesn't want you to know. That's why they control the narrative. It's unbelievable. We're finding all this out now. If you got value from this report, tap subscribe. My final thought is next. So this is not random violence. It's what happens when corporate predators push too far. Blackstone turned housing into a weapon against working families. They're not buying homes to sell them. They're hoarding them forever, creating a nation of serfs. James Fishback had it right. Cut property taxes to zero for homes under $500,000, then double them on every Blackstone property. Make them bleed money until they sell. And the Wesley LePatner assassination? Well, what does that tell you? We didn't even know her name. The media downplayed it. Why? Because they don't want you to make that connection. Vegas collapsing 40% while Blackstone owns the Strip? That's not coincidence, that's karma. When you destroy the American dream, when you turn shelter into a luxury, when you make people desperate, people do desperate things. And it's sad. And the media plays a role in keeping that story from you. So here's the question. Should Congress ban corporations from buying single-family homes? Yes or no? Comment below, and you can support truth at shop.nextnewsnetwork.com, where you can trigger a liberal today.